Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're going to review Metro Awakening VR, a game that was released on all the major VR platforms November 7th, 2024 by developer Vertical Games Amsterdam. Metro Awakening is a narrative-driven first-person shooter adventure horror game. It's got some atmospheric exploration, it's got some stealth sections as well, and it has fast-paced action combat, and it has some slow-paced combat as well. There are some puzzles thrown in, but the focus of this game is the story, is the atmosphere, and it's got a lot of horror as well. It's important to know that this game is not a traditional shooter because the focus really isn't on the combat. Even though there is a lot of combat, that's not really the major focus of this game. It's also not a horror survival game or a survival shooter, and I think a lot of negative reviews are people who thought that was what this game was, but it isn't. Personally, I really enjoyed this game. It's one of my top games of the year. This game currently stands at a mixed review status on Steam, and I just do not understand that. This is a very good game with a great narrative adventure. It's a well-written story that's perfectly executed, in my opinion. The voice actors did a great job, and it's got a good musical score, although I do have some complaints there. Now, the combat is not as good as the narrative portion of this game. The combat is still solid. I still enjoyed it, but it definitely lacked a lot of depth and variety to really put it over the top. So while I do understand some of the negative reviews on Steam, I definitely disagree with them. I think this is one of the best games of the year, and I definitely would put it in the top 25 VR games of all time. To put it succinctly, this is a better Arizona Sunshine with a much better story and a lot more facets to it than just shooting. So let's get into detail here. Metro Awakening VR is running on the Unreal Engine 5.2. On my RTX 3080, I was getting a steady 90 frames per second. I did have textures on very high and shadows on medium. I did turn off anti-aliasing, but I did increase resolution scale. I did not increase brightness, and that was a big mistake because certain sections of the game were too dark. So if your game is too dark, just go to settings and change the brightness. I did not experience any issues or bugs whatsoever in this game. You do have full locomotion along with teleportation available, smooth or snap turning along with speed or degree of turn. You can play comfortably seated or standing. You can choose your dominant hand and also whether you want the camera to follow with your controller or your head. It's got various comfort options as well. So basically it's got all the options. If you read the reviews on Steam, you'll see various reviews that say the graphics are wonderful, and you'll also read that the graphics are terrible. So which one is it? Well, I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak from my point of view and my opinion. And in my opinion, the graphics are actually very good in this game. Now, if you're expecting Half-Life Alyx, you're going to be gravely disappointed. Surprise, surprise. I don't know why people expect Half-Life graphics in any VR game. That's not going to happen anytime soon. But the truth is, this is better looking than the Arizona Sunshine remake or Arizona Sunshine 2 or the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. In fact, this is just one of the better looking VR games. It's not the best looking VR game, and it wouldn't probably be in the top 5 or 10, but it would be up there, especially if you're talking about a VR game with a campaign that as long as this one. The lighting in this game is excellent, and the lighting is very important in setting the atmosphere for this game. There is a huge horror component to this game. What this game gets absolutely right is atmosphere, and it is a combination of the graphics, the sounds, and the music. Now, I do agree that not all the textures were the highest resolution they could have been, but overall the game still looks great, and most of the textures are pretty high up there. Again, I had my textures set to very high, so I can't speak for someone else who didn't do that. But yeah, I don't understand people who are giving this game a negative review, especially those that talk about graphics, because this is one of the better looking VR games. It's not the best, and it wouldn't be in the top 10 looking VR games, but it would still be up there near the top, and definitely I think it would be my top 25 looking VR games. Again, especially if you consider the depth and gameplay here. Now, the story is really where this game is near the top of VR games. In fact, I don't know if there's a fully VR game that has a better story other than maybe something like Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Now, I wasn't in love with the story at the start. I was a little bit confused, but as the game game went on and I heard more of these stories, the story started making more sense, and you got a sense of these characters and their struggle, what they're going through, their trauma, and you start seeing this world differently. I don't like doing spoilers, so I don't want to go into detail of the story, but if you had told me that a story about a doctor who gets compared to Genghis Khan somehow ends up being a very heartfelt story about love and loss, I would have been very confused, but it does all make sense at the end. And the voice acting all around is excellent. Usually in VR, there might be like one strong voice actor and the rest might be mediocre. In this case, all the voice actors did a wonderful job, and it really helps in bringing the immersion, bringing the story to life, and you feel like you're a part of the story. And these metro stations come to life. They have pianos, they have guitars, they have toys, they have used items, they feel lived in and they feel destroyed, and you see the past trauma. I have seen several negative reviews mention that this game retreads past locations, but even when you go back, things are different. Stuff has happened, events have occurred, and you see the aftermath, so it's not exactly the same. You see all the changes around. In this world, change is constant, loss is a constant thing, and this affects the people. And this game tells a story not just through their words, but also through the environmental storytelling. So like I said, this game not only has a great story, but it has a great atmosphere. One of the best in VR, but you do have to pay attention. This game doesn't hold your hand, but it is rewarding. The soundtrack overall is excellent, and I loved it, but it did have one issue, and that is during the stealth sections, sometimes it was just misplaced. What I mean by that is that there would be like this crescendo of music while you're trying to sneak by an enemy, and it just didn't feel right. But again, it was an excellent score, but sometimes the beats didn't match the action on screen. And big kudos to the sound mix here. Great spatial audio. This is a dark game. There's several very dark sections. Like I said, I really love the lighting in this game, and one thing that helps that is that you could hear where enemies were coming from. So even when it's really dark and really scary, you could still, if you listen closely, tell exactly where they were coming from. And it's just a great mix of ambient sounds, the lighting, the soundtrack, all to really amp up the horror and the ambiance. This is a horror game, and my heart was pumping through several sections. I was truly terrified at various points in this game. Now, I found the combat here to be solid, but not great. If you played Arizona Sunshine, then you know exactly what to expect. And I do think they've improved the combat, but just not enough. There's not enough depth here. A lot of the difficulty is you just getting blitzed at times. The enemy AI is just okay. They're just really easy to cheese, and there simply just isn't enough enemy variety. I would have liked to have seen more environmental dangers other than just the radiation and having to put your gas mask on. You're given grenades, but you almost never need to use them. There's no real traps you can set for the enemy, and even the stealth sections are unrewarding just because there's really no need to go stealth. Other than some lanterns, you can't turn off light sources, and the only distraction is bottles or cans that are strewn about the place. The problem is too many enemies wear helmets and you can't knock them down. I did play the game on normal difficulty, but I did find the game just to be too easy. And while I did appreciate the different kind of combat encounters, none of them were dynamic enough. There were some puzzles as well, although there were few and far between, and they were really just casual difficulty. Overall though, I did find the combat to be solid. There's different weapons, and you are forced to use all of them because otherwise you'll run out of ammo, and they each had their different strengths and weaknesses, which I appreciated. I definitely think though that a bow and arrow would have been better over the blowgun, and maybe like a noisemaker over the bottles or cans you can throw. Just something more reliable where you can attract enemies to a certain location. That way you can use your grenade more effectively, or set a trap, or even maybe just use it for stealth purposes. Overall, I do think this is a great game. It took me a little less than 12 hours to beat the game, again on normal difficulty. I bought the deluxe edition and I had a blast playing it. Like I said, I don't understand the negative reviews. This is one of the best VR games. It wouldn't exactly make my top 10, but I definitely think it'd be in the top 25. Like I said, I would just put it a notch below Batman. If you've played a better PC VR game in 2024, please let me know in the comments below what game that is. I'd rate Metro Awakening VR an 8 out of 10. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.